Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I am Laura Carfang, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Breast Cancer Conversations. I am so glad you are joining us. If you are a first-time listener, welcome. Thank you so much for finding us. Huge hugs going out to you. If you tune in week after week and continue to support the show, I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much for listening and being part of our Breast Cancer Conversations podcast and survivingbreastcancer.org community. I also want to put in a plug for our incredible newsletter that we have that goes out to everybody every Monday. So if you are not subscribed, head over to survivingbreastcancer.org/subscribe and make sure you are signed up for our mailing list. All right. So today, I have to say, in full disclosure, I caught myself sitting at my computer working and no surprise, right? Just sitting at the computer working. And I noticed I wasn't breathing. My jaw was clenched and my shoulders were up into my ears and I was hunched over and I forgot to take a breath. Let's talk about this for a moment. Taking deep breaths. I know it happens naturally that we just breathe. We're alive, we're breathing. I get it. But when was the last time you actually took an inhale and filled up your lung capacity? I mean, we have amazing lungs, and why are we not using them to the fullest? So I had to stop right there and just be like, oh my gosh, what is going on? My body is definitely signaling something to me, and we need to change this. Which is why I'm so excited for today's episode, because my guest has spent a long time working with people whose bodies are in this continuous state of stress. Brett Aldrich is an Ayurvedic health counselor and breathwork practitioner. And before all of that, she worked in social services around trauma and domestic violence. So she comes to this discussion from two different perspectives, the physiology and the lived experience. What I loved about this conversation is her whole philosophy is around the idea of what is the one thing you could do today in 2 minutes. And if you could do it today in 2 minutes, can you also do that again next week? We get to talk about digestion after chemo, medical menopause, how trauma settles into our chest, and what actually happens in your nervous system when you do finally take that full deep breath that I was talking about. One of the things that Brett mentioned during the conversation that I can't stop thinking about is when the body feels safe, there is space to heal. That makes so much sense to me and totally eye-opening during this conversation. Before we get started, I do just want to highlight that Brett and I talk about Ayurvedic practices, including cleansing protocols, and we are both very careful to say and repeatedly say this needs to happen under clinical guidance and with your own doctor's sign-off. We are talking about complementary care, and it sits alongside with any care that you are currently undergoing with your medical oncology team, never as a replacement. So with all of that, I am so excited that you guys are here today. Welcome to the conversation.
My name is Brett Aldrich. I am an Ayurvedic healthcare counselor, breathwork practitioner, and facilitator. My background is in yoga, but also social services, working in, very long time ago, worked in social services, specifically working with trauma awareness and domestic violence, but now currently just has slowly migrated and quickly migrated to healthcare, natural healthcare, holistic care, indigenous Indian medicine. So that's basically it. Yeah.
That's basically in a nutshell, which is a lot. I love yoga. I started practicing yoga, decades ago when I was in college, really enjoyed it. And then feel like over the last, even 20 years or so, there's just so many different types of yoga that people can get into. And I actually had to pivot my practice after I was diagnosed with breast cancer because I realized my body just was not able to do more of the high intensity type workouts. I was very sensitive to the heat intensive yoga practices, et cetera, and really needed to slow my body down. And that was hard, I think, after going through a breast cancer diagnosis when you used to be active and energetic and had the stamina to do a lot of things. And then realizing that different types of practices like yin yoga, restorative yoga, or just being able to sit in stillness was actually equally as hard as doing inversions and headstands. So, I'm very curious to learn a little bit about how your yoga practice has kind of taken you into this segue. And if we can also like define what is
Mhm.
Ayurvedic, am I pronouncing that correctly? Ayurvedic
Sure. Yeah,
practice.
Ayurveda. Yeah,
Ayurveda.
Ayurveda.
Hmm.
Ayurveda is again, they many coin it as the sister science to yoga. However, I don't know. I feel like it's the other way around. I feel like yoga, the physical asana practice, right, is part of the whole piece of the puzzle, right? It's a puzzle piece to the whole practice of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a lifestyle. It's a
Mm.
indigenous ancient medicine. It was created or realized, as they say, the philosopher Sankhya, it's a realization of how the world is and the way we operate here in this vast, extensive, learning place, right? So, and it's based into, and we can make it simplified into we utilize the five elements and the descriptions and how the elements work together to figure out how to live here. So the five elements are, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And all of those elements have characteristics and descriptions and everything from how our food tastes and how it works in
Oh,
our body to how we operate. And also including our temperament. And we all have these five elements and we all have a different combination of them. And so does our plants, and so does the earth, and so does the air, and so does our activities and lifestyle all encompass these five elements and these characteristics. So we kind of play with this understanding. And there are a lot of rules, but they're just a guideline on how to live here. And it is a lifestyle first. And a primary example is, yoga, Ayurveda, and the philosophies of yoga and Ayurveda are a big piece of like, how do we live here? How can we live here the best way we can? How can we have joy and through whatever happens in our lives? And how can we live our life with less suffering, even though we have things happen? And how can
mm,
we deal with them? It's a very simplified understanding in a very complicated world. And so
yes.
we do the best we can. So that's the knowledge and understanding. That's kind of the basis knowledge. It's deep, deep, 5,000-year-old practice. So we're all starting to kind of catch up and catch on to it again, which has been really nice because we've been noticing that, there's more than just one way. And that's kind of how we've been looking at it. And that's how I've been approaching it. It's helped me deeply. So, I just like to share it. That's basically it. Yeah.
Amazing. And so this
Yeah.
is a lifestyle that you are actively practicing and engaged in and try to bring to your day-to-day life and
Yeah.
practice as well.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, I don't do it perfectly either. I do have some vices of my own, coffee in the morning. I still practice every now and again. And there are a lot of things I'm not great at. But at the same time, there have been things that have happened in my life where I'm like, oh, I actually know I can probably help myself through this in this way, So I do have the practice in my life daily. It's always in my world. It's become easier over time to live this lifestyle as I've continued to do it, right? Practice is a piece. So, you do it
Hmm.
often enough, it becomes just second nature, and right. I don't do it perfectly, but it's always
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Amazing. So I want to
Yeah.
ask you a couple more questions about this lifestyle, this practice. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
does your daily routines look like? What does it incorporate?
Mm-hmm.
And then I also want to just kind of giving you and our listeners like an idea of where we're going with some of this conversation is then
Yeah.
kind of pivot and put that on hold for a moment while we then talk a little bit about understanding what, kind of trauma informed practices are and why that's
Mm-hmm.
so important in the context of like breast cancer or cancer in general, serious
Mm-hmm.
illness and
Yeah.
how we kind of bring these practices to kind of help our nervous system and why that is so important. I think you also
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, plants and food and understanding the role that our digestion plays in all of this
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. So, I think
Yeah.
first I want to make sure that we understand the definitions and then what we're talking about and then why this is so
Sure.
important for helping us heal because this
Mm-hmm.
is definitely a complement to a lot of the traditional
Yeah.
medicines and especially in the context of cancer where a lot of us are willingly getting toxic treatments, whether it's radiation,
Mm-hmm.
chemotherapy, or hormonal therapies that really change our biology. There's a lot kind of helping to save our lives, but then at the same time, it can feel so out of control that where can we meet this medicine at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you were talking a little bit about these different practices. You have these 5 elements. I remember one of my yoga instructors telling me, it's called yoga practice. It's not yoga perfect. And that really stuck with me. I was like, oh, absolutely. I don't need to be on my mat and, comparing myself to other people who are maybe more flexible or have different body structures. And then really just me showing up for myself. And this is my practice. And some days I feel really great doing it. Other days I'm like, oh, I'm not so grounded today. What do I need? How do I listen to my body and just be more intentional about that? But I would love to hear, you mentioned coffee as advice. I am sitting here with my coffee as I do every morning. But tell me a little bit more about these guidelines or rules or recommendations that are part of this lifestyle.
Absolutely. And, the interesting thing is it depends on the person that I'm working with. So it really is a personal and finite practice for you and you only. What I do as a practitioner or a counselor is I just send you into the direction of where you best fit for yourself in the now. Right? So every day's different. Something can pop up, something new can come along, or something unexpected. And when you kind of understand yourself and there's a little inner wisdom going on, you can navigate it with a little less stress, right? So it really is about maintaining an understanding of yourself, whatever state you're in, accepting yourself in the moment and moving forward with that basis and understanding, but also the self-knowledge and how things play. When it comes to elements, when it comes to your food, activities have their own elemental quality too, right? So maybe today you have a yoga practice, a physical yoga practice. Maybe today your yoga practice is laying down for 20 minutes and just closing your eyes. It really is, every single day is different, and we change daily too as well, especially women too. We are changing often. So being able to, the only predictable thing is that it's unpredictable sometimes. So if you really can go with that, and our emotional state also has its own elemental state. So there's this way of ebbing and flowing with your personal internal season, but also your external seasons, if we have 4 seasons. And understanding how it all works. So when you know how they work and what they're like and their characteristics, you can start unpicking and choosing for yourself what works best for you in the moment. And I'm just a guide to give you the information. And, I work with people who their, diet is like, listen, I'm going to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch and I'm going to dash off to the next thing. So, or, I can't eat because I'm just overwhelmed. I just don't have an appetite and I don't know why. Or I've been through this and my appetite is depleted because I just, I've been through it, right? So when that happens, it's the little teeny steps forward that really work, that really assist in this process. Like Ayurveda, the biggest piece too is that a slow process is very important. One little baby step at a time. There's all of this information, but really what it is about you can bring on more discomfort and disease, even if you're doing the right thing, but it's a lot, right? So, and one of my teachers says this, one thing can change everything. So that's what we usually do is what's one thing you think you can do that could start the process and kickstart something? And we want people to empower themselves in their own decision making. A lot of these things that happen in our lives when they're diagnosed, when they receive a diagnosis, is that we want them to be able to choose something. So we place the information out in front and say, what do you want to do? What's your choice here? What do you want to do? And this is big, allowing a source of empowerment or decision making based on information that they've learned with their own self-knowledge and wisdom. And I feel that's something that really we focus on a lot too as well, if that helps there. Yeah. That's
so as a
lot
guide,
in a little.
Yeah. So as a guide, when you're working with clients, what are some of the tools or tactics that you would recommend for somebody?
Sure. It could be anything from waking up a little bit earlier in the morning. Sunrise is a great change and shift in someone's hormonal makeup. It also can change your digestion. So when you wake up with the sunrise, you kind of get up a little bit before it and to see the sunrise and to welcome the morning and the day coming in. So you're welcoming the day in. You're not waking up going, oh, the day's already started. You're starting before the day begins. So
or you're like me and I see the sunrise come through and I put the sheets over my head and I'm like, oh God, do I have to get up right now?
I know. Yeah, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy at first. The hope is over time, if you wake up 5 minutes earlier, we really go increment smalls. But what we try to do is we we want to enjoy the sun in the day and welcome the day no matter what state we're in, right? Waking up is a blessing, right? Life is a blessing as we see it. So like when you see the sunrise, it's just welcoming the next day in, and then at sunset, we try to see the sunset. That
Yeah.
alone, like even sometimes I'm tired too. And like, I'm like, well, you know what? I say this to some people too, pull the shade back, look out, see it. Okay, it's beginning. And then if you need to lie down again, that's okay.
Right.
That could be
Yes.
part of your practice as well. Like I've said, like shavasana is also a great practice, which is like laying down on the floor. So,
Mhm.
your beginning is so important too as well. That's one simple thing. Well, it's not always simple, but that's one thing we do is just seeing if people can just like enjoy the sunrise and see the end of the day and call it good. That's one
Yeah.
piece. Another piece is, warm water in the morning just to begin your day. We can add things to the warm water, but well, that's the first thing is like we wait, depends
Mm.
on what you need, right? But warm water is really nice in the morning to have. It flushes out any toxins that are left over within the body, allows to kickstart your digestion in the morning. We also suggest to scrape your tongue. It also starts the process of digestion in the morning. It takes away some of the toxins on the tongue that builds up. The tongue is a definite showing of, what's going on inside. So just trying those little things, start making some changes as well. And sometimes when we kind of like come forward with a big life change later on, it's not as difficult because you've already done the other small things to start the process. So those are a couple little things that we do. And, it helps to just know that the sun is coming up.
Yeah.
It's just good to know that that's the I can predict the sun is going to rise,
Right.
and that's a piece of it. Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I love how you frame that as well. So it's not this like overwhelming like overhaul, but there's these small little steps and incremental steps that we
Mhm.
can take. I want to take a quick moment and tell you something I'm really excited about. You can now download the survivingbreastcancer.org app directly from the App Store or Google Play. Just search for survivingbreastcancer.org. It is completely free to download, and inside you will have access to all of our support groups, educational programs and webinars, all of our blog content and articles, podcast episodes, and community features to connect with others who understand what you're going through. Everything in one place, because navigating breast cancer shouldn't require 15 open browser tabs. Download the app today.
Yeah.
I start my day off with a cup of water every morning because I'm trying to increase my water, but I did not think about warm water. So again, thinking about the importance of
Yeah.
digestion. And so can we linger on that a little bit more too? Because you were also talking about how, just seeing the sunrise could also help with, just hormones and everything also that we are experiencing. I think as women going through breast cancer treatment, our digestion is really messed up, to be quite frank, right? We're on a lot of
Yeah.
drugs that not only are killing the cancer, but they're also attacking potentially like the healthy cells, like hair follicles or our digestive tract, et cetera. And so we're always on this oscillation, I should say, of, constipation, diarrhea, upset stomach, appetite, no appetite. And then to have this imbalance, I'll use me as an example where my cancer was hormonally driven. And so it was critical that we depleted my estrogen, like basically down to zero. And so on one hand, I was like so excited that I'm on these drugs that are helping prevent the cancer from growing and responding. But then I was like, the more research I'm doing, estrogen is really important for your body. It's important for your bone health. It's important for your heart and your cognitive ability. And so, how can I balance that, knowing that like I'm not trying to like have all these side effects later in life either, right? And so I think these are just questions that we hear a lot in the community. And that when you're forced into medical menopause, when you're even going through perimenopause, et cetera, these are just really challenging moments in a person's life.
Yeah. Yes. And, and I think, as I've learned too along the way myself, with this information, you're like, oh my goodness, like, hang on a second. So what do I do after? Or even, the whole like understanding of like the before, the during, and the after too as well, how to support, maybe the symptoms may remain, however, just having the knowledge and understanding. So then whenever you do what you have to do, right? There's that piece of like, sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. right? And then there's the afterward, right? And then there's like, okay, so what next? What next can I do to build back what I lost? Or if I can build something back after what I've lost, how can I do it in a way that I feel like a human being, like I feel like I'm being supported? How can I do it in a way of loving myself without, making myself feel bad, right? You want to there's that comparison, right? That, your process is your process. And however that is going to be what it is. To regain the strength, or we call immunity, or what we call also ojas, which is our deepest and deep resiliency, and being able to, combat against any other, potential external stimulus that could be harmful. There is a process you can go through that Ayurveda does provide, where you can cleanse the body, rebuild tissue, rebuild your immunity, and then move forward from there. And then it's always a continuous practice too. With Ayurveda, it's never ending. You're always working on it. So if you consider it like that too, it's just a new understanding of like, oh, this is stuff I never thought about, and now I'm thinking about it. So that alone is a big step in the right direction. So
Yeah.
having this wisdom after this process that we go through when having something so devastating as this diagnosis, the other side of it too is what the wisdom and the information that you gain in order to be able to prolong and continue on and move forward. So
Mm.
that is a big piece too. So that's, when you understand that, hormones are such a big deal, then you kind of have a basis of understanding of how to help yourself and ask those questions. What's best for me? And working with people like myself or anyone else that does this kind of work, we just start slowly building. You cleanse the cells as best as you can with the practices. We call it panch karma. There's many different cleansing processes, depending on your immunity and how strong you feel. And then there's a rebuilding process afterward, and which there are techniques to do that as well. And then your body, we as practitioners, and I feel too, the body wants to heal and get better. So whatever the body will need to do, if it's given the template and the canvas to be able to heal, then over time, your body will start to mend and move forward. And there are some things too, we're not sure if it will, but we do the best we can with the information we have, the slow process moving forward, the rebuilding, the cleansing of the body if we can. And then over time, the body will start rebuilding what it lost, right? The
Yeah.
human body is like phenomenal. It's an amazing being, even when ill or there's pathology. It's like, how is this possible? And just know like there's always a possibility. Ayurveda, there's a will, there's a way, right? So, and just for most of us, right? So we just try to find the opening of where your body's going to be most receptive and go from
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
I'm curious about this cleansing of the cells. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that
Sure.
entails?
Yeah, so I say cleansing of the cells. There's many philosophies and understanding of it. Panch karma is a very dare I say aggressive, but it is a practice. It is a detox, so to speak, or a cleansing of the body. So it's different actions that we take to let go of, get rid of what we call ama, but it's also toxins of the body. And in Panch Karma, it's trifecta. It's your body, your mind, and it's spiritual practice as well. It's all three. And one of them is we start with oleation of the internal body. We try to get the body primed and ready to let go of toxins. There is an abhyanga, which is a body massage, which is done. It's done, of course, do it under the guidance of a Ayurvedic practitioner and doctor. So, and your own doctor too, as well. Like after going through something like this, ask if it's something that's available to you too, which is very important because you do need to be a little bit strong in wait before you do something like this. There's healing that needs to happen before you do the panch karma. And then the abhyanga, this body massage, is just a rigorous massage of the body to get the ama out of the tissue of the body, and it goes back to the stomach. And then after that, there is a version of letting go, a vamana or defecation, so like enema type process. So it's letting go. And then after that, and during this process, you're eating just a mono diet, a very simple diet. And that as well as a piece of it, it involves mung beans and rice, and it's a very simple diet. So it allows your colon and your digestion to rest so you can go through the process. Again, it is a cleansing process. It does a really great job of cleansing the body. It's one of many ways to do things, but this is one of them. And after that, we rebuild. So we rebuild the digestion after that. So we slowly wean you back into like normal eating. We say normal eating, but like as as clean as possible. So after the mono diet, we go slowly come back into eating like vegetables and maybe a little, like we kind of add a little dairy over time. And then at that point, we want to really like work on your digestive fire, your metabolism. So then we go back to the metabolism, go back to your digestion and readdress after that process. It's one of those things. It comes to you when you're ready. And again, it's with the guidance of all those people like the village that you worked with to go through everything. You go back to your village and you're like, is this good for me? Right. So that's another piece, but it is a piece of the cleansing process to kind of get as much out of the body as possible so you can start mending the tissues, while you're, on your path.
How long is this cleansing process for?
Sure. You can do it 3 days. It can be 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. Traditionally, there's a tradition to it too as well. There's a spiritual practice too. So the amount of days and how the body operates is, together, right? So 3 days, 5 days, 7. Some people go up to, many. I've never gone to past 7. Some people.
That's going to be my next question. So have you done this practice? Have you done this Panch Karma?
I have. I have done the Panch Karma. I've done it with a clinician. I've gone to a place to do it. And I've also done it at home. You can do it on your own, but still always under the guidance of someone else. Like I'm a practitioner, but I still go to my doctor and I still go to my village for support, because sometimes I'd be like, is it time for, and there was a year where I was just like, should I do it this year? And they were like, we're not going to do it this year. How about you just kind of nourish your body and take care and wrap yourself in a blanket and rest, and that's kind of like the other piece too, is like, when's a good time to rest and when is a good time to really try it and go for it. There's that balance that we're always looking for in the process.
If you've done 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, you said was the longest. How did you feel afterwards?
Afterward, at first, it's almost like you let go of a lot. So you feel a little kind of like, depending on your emotional state or how you're doing, you can feel a little tired. Some people feel like invigorated. Personally, I was more like, oh gosh, all right, I need a couple more days to rest, and to rebuild my digestion, to rebuild my fire. But then over time, it really did shift things internally, and it allowed me to, like, some of my cravings started to go away. Like I would crave like more, like if I crave sugar, like that started to subside. My wanting to have quiet actually was more into my life. My yoga practice changed as well. It was a quieter practice after the Panch Karma, which was really interesting. I thought for sure I'd go the other way, but I was like, I guess, it all depends. Like if you feel it out and take the time, it is something that you want to take time in. For me, even though I did it 7 days as like a real important piece, like it's about a month of like preparing and then coming off. So it is about a month of just, focus. So it's not for everybody. It's not always conducive to schedule. However, if it is possible in your life, it's always an option. And I'm a big fan of like, there's options and choices. And this is one of them.
It doesn't have to be
one
all
of the
or
many. Yes, one of the so many. And there's so many of us out there that are so willing to just like talk about it and serve whoever is interested. So that is a piece of it. The Panch Karma was a piece in my process. Yeah.
Very interesting. So I love all this knowledge that you're bringing to today's conversation as well. I want to talk a little bit because, this cleansing piece is very intriguing to me personally, but I'm also sure to our listeners as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit, because of your background also in working with patients who have gone through various forms of trauma, how trauma lives and manifests in our body?
And it does. And interestingly enough, we do work around the heart and the breast tissue is affected for sure. Our body collects things that we cannot process, right? So whether it be stimulus or things that happen in our lives or physical trauma, right? And either one deeply affects our bodies, right? And so I'm a strong advocate for, again, what do you want to do? I provide this. What do you want to do? The services I provide and the information I give, and people decide to do it when they feel is best for them, when they feel ready. When working with people who have suffered through so many things, you definitely want to make sure that they're supported in so many different ways, right? Not just with me, but like, again, there's a plethora of people supporting, and there's like a vessel holding this person while they're going through their process and their path of discovery and decision making, and everybody has their turn in that process, right? So, and I do feel that, reconnecting with your body and loving yourself and going into that space of like self-love, your body loves you unconditionally. And, maybe we do it in return, listening to our bodies, pushing when you're ready to push, when you're not ready and you feel you need to rest, rest. I'm a strong advocate for this is under your control, your decision making, how you want to do it. When it comes to working with those who have had, breast cancer and other forms of cancer, there's a level of emotional connection to it, what happened before and what's happening afterward. And the during is just, I feel there's just this deep focus of wanting to get better and wanting to move forward.
Yeah.
But the before and the after is the focus too. What happened before and what can we do now? And volunteering and inviting them to love themselves and love their body.
Yeah, I think that's something we hold on to a lot, even in the support groups that we run, where, there's this line in the sand of this was my life prior to a diagnosis, and it's never going to go back to that. And no one tells you you're not going to go back to that. You want to go back to it. But then how do we accept this new person, so to speak? We're going through a surgery that changes our physique. We're on medications that also changes our body, our hormones, our mindset. And you're never done. Whether you're diagnosed early stage or with metastatic disease, there's always going to be surveillance or scans or medications that you're taking. So it's really, how to live with the diagnosis versus, putting it in a box and never thinking about it again. I feel like I want to take an Ayurvedic vacation. Like, I feel like I want like 7 days for someone to just like guide me through all of this. However, what do you tell the busy mom who's running around with like kids and pick up and drop off, soccer practice, meals? You also hear a lot of it, like the sandwich generation. We're dealing with older parents that we have to take care of. We have a demanding work schedule. Like, how does this fit into reality?
Yes, it's really challenging, right? And that is the thing too, is that when we say one little step at a time, we really mean it. So when we work with anyone who's busy, I can absolutely relate to all of those things that you're saying. Like, oh my gosh, how can I do this? When I started this practice, I was lucky enough to have so I just was like, I'm going to do this. So we're just going to have to figure this out. That was kind of where I just decided, I'm just like, we're going to figure this out. The other piece is I have family, right? So like, my kids were like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? And it was so different, than what I used to do before I started this practice, right? This lifestyle. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of things that my family had to accept as well. Like, this is this new human being. She's doing these new things, or she's prioritizing this over this. Not that they weren't a priority. It was just kind of like, I think I have to shift things around because, when I started this practice to myself, I was like, I don't feel right. I don't feel good. My doctor is saying everything's fine and normal, but I don't feel good. So it's like, when we're coming forth and like, say, for example, we go through this process, and then we're on the other side of it. And then everyone has the expectation, like, you're going to just like work 40 hours a week, take care of all the kids, put the dinner, take care of everything and go back to the old way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Like most women are, most women are doing this. And so how can we start allocating, part of it is like, part of our practice is like, well, is it something you have to do, or can someone else maybe do it this time? Or, interesting thing of when your hair's growing back, what color is it when it comes back? Like, okay, so the reality is you lost your hair, but the other piece of it is when it returns, like, how are you going to treat your head? How are you going to treat your body when it's starting to come in? Like, what a luxurious thing to like really like take care of your head and your scalp. Like we oil our head. We use oil a lot in our bodies. So like oiling your head, oiling your feet, like there's something to do to treat and take care of yourself with the newness that's coming in or coming forward, right? It's not predictable, and who knows, right? And I think that's sometimes I have a little fear of that myself. Like, what's going to happen next? Yeah. So, and that piece too is strange, is challenging. So what is the one thing, just the one thing you can do, maybe not even every day, once a week, the one thing you can do to give yourself a minute to take care of yourself and continuously? And what is something that's sustainable? So we always talk about that because I get it. Like, oh my gosh, like I get it. Like I totally get it. Like, it's so hard. And I've been through it myself. It's not easy. There are days where I'm just like, what did I do today that actually really even helped me? I don't even think I know. But like, however, it's sometimes like, but what helps me is I'm getting what I need to get done and I'm taking care of my family and myself. And that's a big step, right? So what's one thing? What's one thing you've done that can assist yourself today that can be done in 2 minutes? 2 minutes, 1 minute, one deep breath,
I was going to
things
actually
like that.
segue right there into,
Yeah.
the power
Mm-hmm.
of breathing, taking a deep breath. I find myself,
Mm-hmm.
sitting at the computer most days, working, definitely having high levels of like stress and anxiety and all sorts
Mm-hmm.
of things, just, life. But then
Right.
realizing I'm not even using the full capacity of my lungs. I am not
Mm-hmm.
taking a
Yeah.
full deep breath. And that's one, horrifying that I'm not breathing correctly. But then two, like the power of like the counting to 5 or the box breathing or these different
Mm-hmm.
techniques to really be present in a moment and
Yeah.
literally catch your breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So what role
absolutely.
does breath work play in this practice?
Yeah. What I love about breath work is that you don't really have to be going anywhere or doing anything specific. You don't have to go to a studio. You don't have to buy this and do that. You can take a moment, right? And take a reflective breath. I'm like, right? That whole, am I breathing? And we forget too that a lot of us breathe, there's a pattern and pathway in our breathing too that can create difficulties in our body, right? So, how can we find a full diaphragmatic breath when we haven't probably taken one in years, right? So, how can we reconnect with that breath? Breath is such a vital piece of ourselves, right? It's a automatic pattern that we do. Like our body does it without knowing, right? So at the same time, though, when we come to the realization we've been holding our breath, why is that?
Mhm.
What is going on there? Why am I so afraid that I'm holding my breath, right? When I'm sitting doing work, or
Yeah.
just living my day out.
Clenching
The
your
breath
teeth
is,
or just doing these
yeah,
different things that you didn't realize were like, oh
yeah.
gosh, I need to really relax like my facial muscles.
Yes, and it is deeply connected with the vagus nerve as well, and the vagus nerve assists in all of and it's connected to all of our organs. It's the vagus nerve is connected to our stomach, all of our organs, our lungs, our heart, and when we can take a full diaphragmatic breath, it actually massages the whole internal body. The diaphragm is actually a big piece of it, and when you're taking a full diaphragmatic breath, it actually nourishes, hydrates, and massages the whole internal body.
Hmm.
Okay. The organs, it nourishes the blood, and that's a big piece too. Plasma in your blood, it nourishes the blood as well, and that goes through the periphery of your body, right? So when we're able to just conscientiously be aware, I'm not like the fact that you're like, oh, I don't even think I breathe there. That's a big win, right? So like, oh, okay, so like you're aware. There's an awareness that breath is important, right? And how you breathe is important. And when there's awareness, eventually the practice and the decision making to acknowledge that and start doing it starts to happen. So just us talking about it, will peak something up. Right. So once there's just a little seed of information or a little bit of information, that's when it becomes to your awareness and, our prana or our mind is such a strong thing. So placing our mindset into a place of like health and taking care of ourselves, like just taking a deep breath is just a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And, it is vital. We call it our life force, right? It's our vitality. So, and it's automatic,
Right.
right? So our body already knows and unconditionally loves us so much that it does it automatically without you thinking about it, right? So why don't we be aware that it's important and, give it back, right? Give the love back. So start considering like, oh, I need to breathe a little bit more. I teach different methods and ways of breathing. There's, of course, pranayam, which is like there's a technique. And then there's breath work, which is just working on trying to nourish the body and operating a natural way. Like we're trying to get back to your like original breath, like when you were a baby.
Hmm.
Like we're trying to get back there. And think about
Yeah.
how like stressless our babies are. Like they don't, like they're just breathing and like happy, right? So like
Yeah.
that's where we're trying to go back to is like getting back to that original breath, the relaxed breath, which in turn helps the vagus nerve, which in turn helps our digestion and the rest of our body. So
Yeah.
just the awareness alone is a triumph.
And what is the connection then with breath and the nervous
Mhm.
system? How can the breath like help lower that
Yeah.
like stress level?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you breathe and the method that we teach is that you try to like also allow the jaw to be relaxed and there's a vibration that comes with it as well with breath. It's And it also stimulates the vagus nerve, which starts here in our throat, right? So when we're relaxed in that space, right, and we're bringing breath into the body, it allows the nervous system to be like, oh, it's receiving what it needs. You're feeling safer. When the body starts to feel safe, that's when the nervous system starts to kick in and say, I'm safe. My body can operate the way it needs to in order to nourish and heal. So when the body feels safe, there's space to heal. When the body feels balanced, the body feels the body feels safe, right? So the same thing with Ayurveda. When there's balance, the body feels safer. The body can start healing. The tissues can start to work and heal. So really, breath and all of that, it just provides that ability of feeling safe in the body. So everything else can start operating the way it was created to operate. It is natural when you feel nervous or scared, the body's in that space of like, I'm going to run, right?
Absolutely.
So everything stops, right? Like everything stops and you go, right? But if you're sitting still and you're not, right? So if animals operate this way as well, like if something's happening and they can't move, they stay still. But if they can run, they do, right? And what do you do when you run? You breathe heavy, right? So when we kind of get through that space of like breathing and shaking off whatever occurred, that's when we can start feeling more balanced and safe in the body and things start to operate. And that's our hope, right? So,
Amazing.
yeah.
We hear a lot in the community for alternative approaches to health or more natural approaches, et cetera. So where does Ayurveda fall in that like spectrum? How can we demystify some of these misconceptions? And then also what role, I think, when we talk about like plants and food and supplements, does that fit into this Ayurvedic practice?
Sure. I can just speak on my own, right?
Oh, yes, please. Absolutely.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Not medical advice. We're just having a conversation.
And just say if that is your path and that's working for you, great, awesome. For me, what we do in Ayurveda is we work towards the deeper underlying source of what's happening in the body. So it can be a long process for some, not for all, but for some. So our purpose is that we hope that you won't need herbs. Our hope is that you won't need supplements. Our hope is that you won't need these things, right? Because there is a need sometimes, no doubt. Our hope is while you're taking whatever it is that's been recommended, that's not, Ayurveda, when you practice the Ayurveda with it as a source of an addition to what you're already doing, over time, the hope is that you won't necessarily need all of those things over time because the lifestyle and the diet and the body movement and these practices your body will be receptive to the nourishment that it's consuming, right? So there's not only like eating what's nourishing, but creating a space and a world inside of us that is receptive to the nutrients that we're consuming. Okay. So the only thing I can say, even with herbs too, we work with herbs and plants, which are phenomenal. And I like herbs. They're cool. Like I think I try them, I really do appreciate them for what I need them. When I need them, I use them. They work for me. However, the hope is to create an inner world where there's receptivity to the nourishment that you're imbibing in, including the herbs, including the supplements too. Like, what if I'm taking a supplement and not against them or anything, but I'm like, wait a second, hold on. My digestion really stinks. I don't know if this is helping me yet, but like, I know that this stuff is going to help me, but maybe my digestion needs a little tweak and a change too as well. So it works together, and that's a big thing that I feel is that we've come so far in our world that we can't not think that it's not all going to work together. Right. And Ayurveda, I feel, is just a piece of that. Like it's a vessel. It's a piece of the puzzle that, we want to create a internal world that's receptive to whatever we're deciding to do, but that also nourishes, but also cleanses out what it doesn't need. So we want the body to be operating optimal, no matter what we look like on the outside. We want the internal body to be working at an optimal level. So whatever comes in that it needs, it will take. Whatever it doesn't need is let go of. And that's the metabolism. We're working on the metabolism. So if you take a supplement, it will work for you because your body's receptive, right? So that's the hope. And then over time, we hope you won't need any of it, but it's there for a reason. Everything's there for a reason. So it just depends on you and what works best for you. And Ayurveda is, an advocate for that as well.
Wonderful. Brett, I really appreciated today's conversation, your wisdom, your knowledge. How can our listeners find you if they are curious about this practice, want to learn more? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can hop on my website. It's www.seedthespirit.com and reach out to me through there. My email's on there. You can even on the homepage, there's a 20-minute free quick consultation you can have with me if you have questions. I'm always open for having conversation about this subject. And I also have email through there. And any updates of what I'm up to and where I'm going to be is usually there.
And can people access you also like in person, but also like virtually too?
Yes, in person and virtually as well. And and over time, classes will be virtual too. I usually do classes in person. However, over time, the online stuff will start coming in.
For sure. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your story and wisdom with us and our listeners.
Thank you, Laura.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you are looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Our show is made possible by our nonprofit, survivingbreastcancer.org, and by our incredible donors like yourself. You can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to sign up for our mailing list, make a donation, and explore the 400+ programs we offer each year at survivingbreastcancer.org/events. Until next time, keep on thriving.